exactly what is it that you are doing and how are you grappling with this behemoth called digital content?
Thanks a lot. Let me take this step by step, and you asked a lot of questions in one question. What we do essentially at Sony Pictures, we run an entertainment app, website, digital platform called Sony Live. Sony Live has entertainment content, which is a lot of our television shows from our channels. We also have a lot of sports and films. So between shows, films, and sports, we have a huge portfolio of entertainment, and we're probably one of the biggest players in that market today. So Sony Live is the destination. That's the end of my shameless pitch. Now let's get on to the work. What all is happening in the digital space is exciting. I think something changed in 2016 in a big way. We've been in this space for about 3-4 years, but we've been watching the way the industry moved. There are 3-4 pieces that fell into place or started falling into place in the last 9 to 12 months. What is essential for mobile consumption or mobile video consumption is, one, that you need a device. And I think over the last 2 years, we've seen smartphone penetration in the country grow significantly, and as per Raghav's presentation, is obviously going to keep growing. So smartphone penetration is one piece of the puzzle. The second piece of the puzzle was the bandwidth that powers the smartphone to be able to watch content seamlessly. You need to do that as cleanly, as seamlessly as you can to give a good experience to the consumer. And if video is going to be the big time consumer or the time draw that people will spend time on, then video has to work on the mobile. So I think bandwidth over the last maybe 9 months to 12 months has improved significantly, primarily because of the 4G coming from Jio and the other players in the market really bringing in quality 4G. So obviously we all know 4G, Jio's touched 100 million users. So there is enough penetration now of 4G. There is, and 3G is also been there. So unlike the 2G to 3G move or the changeover which we saw, which was, we didn't see a wow experience, I think the 3G to 4G has been truly transformative.
So you're saying the move from 2G to 3G, which seemed like just a move in number,
yeah.
But this 4G is not 4G. It's actually true.
Absolutely.
Huh?
So I think, yes, 4G has made a significant difference, and we are seeing consumption happening, and we've seen consumption really, really move up. The last 6 months has been absolutely earth-shattering. If I give you some sort of numbers, most of us in the OTT space or in the digital video space, our numbers are up 3 to 5x in the last 1 year. Most of the people in the music space are up 5 to 8x. So the numbers are significant, and a lot of it is powered by free data.
Sure.
Or cheap data. So devices is one piece. The second piece is the entire video part of, the bandwidth part. And the third part is the content piece. And I think what has happened because of a lot of investments from the various players in the market, we've all put in a lot of effort over the last 2 years to bring in significant amount of content and popular content on mobile and to these devices. So this combination seems to be working. We are probably at a stage where this combination has started ticking about 12 months back, or we have had a run of about 12 months where this content really started, driving consumer growth. We will see monetization really happening now. Fundamentally, monetization comes after the consumer comes in, and there is a lag of monetization after the consumers come in. We will see that piece fall into place, and we saw some charts which said it will be 20,000 crores or
So
whatever
the
that number is.
business
It will fall into
and it
place. It will fall into
It hasn't
place.
yet. It hasn't yet.
It's falling into place, It's even if it becomes 20,000 crores, we'll say, it's still happening.
Right.
Because technology changes so fast. But I think the building blocks are in place.
Right.
We'll see more of it happen.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to bring you in, Subrat. Now, there was this beauty of the internet, as it were, the fact there was serendipity. You could just go on internet and you could see one Charlie Bit My Finger kind of video on YouTube, and that would get like 10 million hits because it just happened on its own. Now, when the big boys come in, as it were, whether it's like Sony or in the case of, say, entertainment or Bollywood, it could be a Yash Raj, or you're dealing with now very recently launched, there was Balaji's also done their own app. Now, do you think that they might just game the system against that little kid who just wanted to do a startup and do his own content? Do you think it's going to kill it because they have the money, they have the deep pockets, they can make anything go viral, anything can trend on Twitter at this point? Is that an issue for the younger ones in terms of now they'll have to work for Sony rather than actually start something of their own?
No, I don't think money can change the way people consume the content. Like if you see the Raghav mentioned like the channel called Chuchu TV, right? And you imagine it's a small channel, the guy sitting in the South India, just have 82 video, right? And you will be surprised, looking at the revenue, right? It's just more than 50 crore, right? And just doubled, what your AIP or what your most popular viral, video channel like TV Barnes, right? It's not about, if you have money, if you launch a platform, it's not about, acquiring users and, just making the content viral. End of the day, how your content is, making sticky to the audience, right? I feel, it's about the content, end of day, what content you are building for what type of audience, right? So, it's totally, depending, content back with the platform strategy, back with, the data, back with the right, TG strategy, right? Look at, the content that works for Chennai audience will totally differ, for a North Indian audience, right? Similarly, if you see the most of the OTT, right? Or each OTT driving different type of strategy. If you look at the majorly Hotstar or Sony, right? Maybe the live sports or maybe the cricket or maybe other sports drive the major viewership, right? That differ from different OTT. Maybe the Hood, right? Hood has a different strategy, which they say the kids first strategy, right? So it depends, right? So doesn't mean if you have money, next day you launch a video, your video go viral. Doesn't mean. Best example is a guy called BBQ Wine. How many of you know this guy Bhuban Bal, right? This guy, just shooting the video simply the handset, right? He knows what his audience is looking for, right? What people are going to watch for, right? So if you crack that taste, piece, if you know that taste, I think nothing is will bound. I mean, yeah.
I'm just getting Nishish, you in and Varun, because you would be looking at, from an investment point of view, where is it headed, but more importantly, where we are right now. And given that you're the one who's going to put in that money, what is it that you look for, and what are the challenges that you're facing before you invest in products which are content driven, and of course, therefore also need to be revenue driven at some point or the other?
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, sorry. With your permission, sir, should I go first? Look, I would take a step back, if you don't mind, and hopefully I'll make a few controversial statements and maybe get a rise out of people like Uday. If we just, firstly, and we are not clever inherently, we sound clever by reflection, because I think we meet just a lot of really smart people all the time, young entrepreneurs or old entrepreneurs who are telling us all the fancy stuff they're doing. I would like to draw everybody's attention back to some of the lay facts first. The lay fact is, it is hard for anybody to produce awesome content all the time. If there was a magical way of doing it, the big boys would have already cracked it. Subrat makes a good point. Money has nothing to do with creative content, actually. You can be quite amused watching a cat dance around, which is basically the YouTube phenomenon, right? The second thing is, and it's not a judgment statement, it's just the harsh fact of life, the audiences are pretty attention deficit now, and it's not the audience's fault. I love Raghav's sort of terminology of snackable content. Never in the history of mankind has data and information chased you on a very personal, private level with the intensity and analysis that it does now. So gone are the days of lazy newspaper reading. Google now knows.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
It's very, very relevant, right? And in fact, I should talk about New York Times and what it does with Flipboard. And that's, to my mind, that's actually a fantastic way of an old world guy cracking, the new system. So just bear with me. So I think, Facebook knows what you're doing, can drag you, know the flow of your day, etc. And therefore, I would put it to Udayan and to the audience that I think it is going to be hard to monetize content simply because there's too much of it out there. The moment you start charging me money for anything, viewing anything, I'll just switch to another medium and start watching something else if the money hurts. So the smart play here has to be, how do you use that followership or that following on the internet or your content to wrap around other monetizable avenues which go hand in hand and actually serve a need for the customer. So maybe I'll pause here for a bit and then give Mr. Jha a chance to comment.
Yeah, first of all, I must thank you that in a demonetization way, we are talking of monetization now. So I'm quite excited to see things happening. I think it's a new phase which is coming now that if I came from IT background, and if I recall the story of software industry before 1977, nobody will pay you for software development. People were doing coding of their own choice, until Bill Gates disrupted it and changed the whole world to see that software is also for money. So that's how the software industry started. So I see, because of my friend, as he said, that there are two things. One is the smartphone, one side, and the other side is the internet. And then comes the content. So these two things have really made a huge difference in the way the content industry or monetization will happen. But if I be more blunt today, I would say that on one side you have a Facebook who is practically using your content and having a revenue of $8 billion per quarter. So they are becoming richer and richer and richest, whereas my photograph or my niece's picture or content has no value. So there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. One side you have a huge money coming to those people who are having those platforms. Other side, we are starving, those content writers are starving. Same thing is happening to writers, authors, or music creators. So there is going to be, as per me, two phases. The first phase is just coming in, where things will change. Platforms like TalenTrack will come, where you will have an opportunity to upload something locally. And then other side will be Sony or somebody else who would evaluate which is valuable content and which is not valuable content. So a lot of things will make these changes, and then there will be kind of, not a chaos, but kind of, again, an impact that people will think, what next? So first phase will be this, and the second phase, I believe, will come where things will be more regularized. I mean, the points that Ernest Young talked about, IP issues or who will hold that right, a lot of things will come. So it's a long way to come.
Sure.
Let's not get very excited about what is happening on few things, but if you really see the disparity between Facebook's monetization strength and the content, it's a huge gap.
I mean, it's only fair now I come to you there because of the point that Varun has made, which is to say that there is no way you can ever monetize content when it's so freely available and so much of it is available, and everyone's very happy to post their own picture and just get their likes, whereas it's actually content that you could have otherwise monetized in another world. Is he being far too pessimistic, or can you close down internet in some form or the other?
I think he's presenting his the view of the world today. The counter view to that is, today we probably don't have enough content. We've probably taken the first few steps on the content side. Today we are probably addressing maybe some Hindi audiences or some Hindi speaking audiences and some English speaking audiences. I think there is room for much more. And when people in the industry tell me, there are some 16 OTT players, or there are 16 platforms out there, or 20 platforms out there, and I'm saying, so how many news sites are there in this country? How many travel portals are there in this country? So I think there is much more room, there's room for many more players, because content will become very specific to region. There's a language aspect to it, there's the gender aspect to it, there's a lot of profiling that will go behind it. There would be some platforms which would run aggregated stories, which would be the bigger ones. But then my guess is there would be a lot of niche players who will come in, and we're going to see huge amount of content coming in. And a lot of content is currently being produced, and my guess is this will multiply many fold in the years ahead. We make 1,000 Hindi films a year, or 1,000 films a year.
1,000 films a year, yes.
Yeah, we make 1,000 films a year. So if you're making 1,000 films a year, my guess is we'll make much more on the digital platform, because it democratizes the whole process. You're able to sit at home, 6 friends get together and do stuff, and be able to make a livelihood out of it. So I think the whole structure of saying that you need to have a large ecosystem to produce content, and therefore there is a minimum entry barrier to get into the film industry, for example, or there's an entry barrier to get into the television production business. The entry barrier to get into digital content is much lower, and he'll tell you from the kind of people who are creating YouTube channels and the kind of people who are coming to us to distribute their content are kids from 4 years experience, 5 years experience, very talented people who are coming to us and saying, we've created this, can you put it out for us? And some of that is getting lapped up very well. And we're working with them on YouTube, we're working them on Live, we're working them on distributing their content in multiple places.
Play. I've seen
So
yes.
So my case is that there is a lot of room in terms of making content, and we're going to see a lot of participation, and the 1.5 people that you have on TalenTrack is going to be very less. I think this number is going to be significantly higher, and a lot of people will get into digital content just to showcase what they can do, just to take the first few steps into the business, and then find their way.
Sure. Well, I wasn't paid to mention Ola, although I see that they're one of the sponsors. Krishna, you should pay me a little bit at some point. But coming back to your argument, Varun, I think you made a very good analogy also for that industry that is dying, which is mine. New York Times has done a great job, and thanks to Donald Trump, there are far more consumers of New York Times right now than there were a few months ago. But for instance, if you take an example of something like The Guardian, right? And Guardian is one of the first newspapers to move into internet in a huge way. But yet, until about 2 or 3 years ago, and I don't know how much could have changed since, 75% of the revenue of Guardian was coming from the newspaper still. So the advertiser who takes that call is still not the consumer of the internet as we know it, at least is, but not to the same extent that a kid would be, but he's more like an immigrant to the medium rather than a kid who's native to the medium. Do you think we face that problem in terms of even advertising on television, where there may not be so many people on television, but the ad rates are going to be much higher? A lot more people, like the Unilevers of the world would rather put an ad up on television than a YouTube channel. Is there a generational gap, do you see, at some level, among the decision makers?
Okay, so let me try and answer that again. Firstly, let me say, I think, to my mind, Uday and I are actually saying exactly the same thing. To your point, what is the one thing that doesn't go out of fashion? I think it's technology. If you look through the ages, the only thing that has remained constant is that technology will beat everybody else down. When you speak of Guardian, of course there's an element of the old world either running or trying to come to grips with, or already having adapted to the new world. Right? And that's the difference you might see between some people are still stuck in the past, some people are trying to move with the times and so on. It's a huge issue across industries. So I sit within my own firm, and my biggest submission all the time is we should watch out, not just in the media industry, but in every industry, for the next tech thing that disrupts our business in a way we didn't imagine. So all of that being said, the comment I would make, because I think I want to talk about the monetization part. What I mean by that is, you can't be stuck with legacy structures and formats. So if you think about Facebook, Facebook is now a 15-year-old platform. It's not a young company as far as young companies in this space go. And I think all of us intuitively know Facebook doesn't have the same draw for their core offering that they used to have 10 years ago. They've become much more a wild media feed, and a bunch of stuff is thrown at me every morning. And I think it's a challenge for Facebook to therefore make sure that it doesn't allow a legacy structure or format to restrain it from being relevant. So you cannot produce magically relevant content all the time, but what you can do, and I think Subrat's the sort of guy who's tracking exactly how to bring it down to a robotic science, is how do you make sure that your delivery channel is catering to the customer's need at that moment in an attention deficit world.
I think, sure.
Sorry, just to add to that, I think as technology changes and as disruption happens, you need to change the way you deliver content. And the newspaper industry hasn't fundamentally changed. The way they've written articles, the way they've gone about it, they haven't changed the way the consumer wants to consume, which is why they've got disrupted. And look at the way BuzzFeed has come and taken away their cake. The telephone guys did the same thing. When the mobile phone came, the first mobile phone looked like a telephone. Till the time Apple came and changed the form factor, and the phone consumption and what you can do with the phone just changed significantly. If you would have stuck to that form, we wouldn't have seen the kind of disruption that we've seen today, or the kind of transformation that mobile phones have been able to bring. So I think as technology comes in, you need to change the way you're delivering your service or the way you're delivering your content. For whatever it is worth, I think the print industry has probably not been fast enough to change to it, and has not been able to quickly move along that path.
Well, it's going
just to add
yeah,
one
please.
point here. So if you go 2 years back, right? So more than 40-50% of traffic, publisher traffic, were coming from social media, right? Like majorly Facebook traffic, right? On Twitter, right? And Facebook actually realized, end of the day, people are millennial audience, all this young audience, where when they're browsing the Facebook newsfeed, they're consuming the content, right? End of the day, I'm actually giving the traffic to the publisher, and I'm actually losing the dollar, right? So, I mean, if you see, till now, right, Facebook has their own bubble browser, right? Within the, browser, when you click, now they're not giving the traffic to the publisher, right? So it's about, like Uday said, technology, you have to change the wheel, according to the consumption pattern, what audience is looking,
So you're obviously youngest in this lot, Subrat, and you work towards finding out exactly how content is changing or how people are responding to new content. Given how easily we reach ancient history so far as technology is concerned, in the past few years, what is the basic trend that you've seen in terms of how we were consuming content before and how we're doing it now?
So I think the social is changing the entire scenario, right? If you see the Facebook, right? So if I go back 2012, 13, 14, it was the only one platform that was YouTube, right? So coming back to the 21st century, 2000, recent year, right? The Facebook is, changing the way how even millennial people use the content, right? Not only even Facebook, a lot of other platforms like Insta, right? Also they launched their own platform, right? Snapchat is actually, if you see, though the India consumption number is pretty less, the US market, right? Facebook is actually, they're afraid of the Snapchat, growth story, right? So the 12 to 13 or 16, 17 audience, right? Or male or female, 80% of their consumption, now they're spending time on Snapchat, right? So the social is, taking the entire pie. If you ask me, age of, let's say, 14 to 24, even 25 to 35 category, right? And second, the live. If you see, live was, considered as just we were doing a hosting event and we were recording, that was live. So now live means it's UGC end of day, right? And it's all open, right? Everybody is becoming a content creator. Like, I think Raghav mentioned, It's not about, I mean, you don't need to go to a studio, right? You can become a studio, right? If you have a smartphone camera, you just open the camera and you just do the live stuff, right? Live is actually, gaining a lot of traction in last 2 years. And Facebook Live, Twitter, Periscope, we are seeing, right? A lot of news broadcasters also, they're going cross-platform, right? So it's not about TV, by the way. So everybody is going cross-platform. Every media, has their different, platform strategy, right? Twitter has different strategy. The content that works on Facebook will not necessarily work on YouTube, right? Every platform, every media, going in cross-platform strategy.
And may I just add one point to that, which is, I think, and Subrat makes a good point. You see, engagement is at the end of the day key, right? You have to be engaged. I love the TalenTrack platform type of structure simply because I think it opens up possibilities for people to decide what the delivery channel should be. So for one intellectual question, maybe to the floor, a lot of creative minds here. Do you know the gaming industry, which is, the Call of Duty and the Assassin's Creed of the world, multi-billion-dollar franchises, huge fan following. The movie industry, huge fan following, the television and so on and so forth. The one thing that obviously people have been waiting to see is there a smart guy, a smart technology, a smart way of delivery which one day combines movies with gaming, right? And it's been a huge question. Steven Spielberg keeps claiming that he's sort of working on a project. If people could come up with a smart thing to converge and bring out new ways of doing the same old thing, the content itself is not relevant. How you're delivering it to the customer becomes valid, and I think that's the million-dollar question. And then your monetization is very, very straightforward then.
Nishit, let me bring you in here. You live in Canada, and of course you have businesses and investments here in India. Now, generally speaking, when we've spoken about how India has responded to changes in the West, we've usually said, okay, we are like, say, 10 years behind, so something will happen there, and then eventually it'll come to us with movies. There's certain kind of movies that became really big, and then they became really big here about 10 years later. Do you think technology has bridged that gap in the sense of what's happening there would be happening almost at the same time here, and when you have to take investment decisions, you would do it on that basis, one? Or do you think what we are doing is essentially look at the West, see, okay, fine, so Uber has done really well, so let me do an Ola. You look at, similarly, you look at Amazon's done really well, so let me do a Flipkart. We're doing a Me Too of what has already been successful, rather than coming up with something that would be absolutely new. Like, there isn't that much application of mind in terms of original ideas here.
See, what my passion is that to see that India has, I think the whole world, I haven't seen any country where you have minds of creativity. I mean, if you see film industry, I mean, from the time of S.D. Burman days to A.R. Rahman to the newcomers, there is a big chunk of these creative people who are sitting there. But the question is the monetization. My take is that the technology will definitely make this behavioral change. For example, TalenTrack today is a platform where these opportunities can be monetized. On the other hand, there is a space for everybody to copy, and it's happening and it will continue happening. But the value will come really from the ideas that will come from the creative mind. And I think India is a country where you have still a huge untapped resources available. You need to really provide a platform, and you really need to monetize them to be more inspiring content creator. Then some of the questions that Uday has, some of the worry that he has, some of the worry that an investment will have a dramatic change.
Well, you were saying something.
So, in terms of monetization, I think if we step back and go back to the topic and say, where are we today in terms of monetization in our journey? So while there is content coming in, we are seeing a huge improvement in bandwidth, we've seen a significant penetration on the smartphone side. The big fourth pillar in this is monetization. How will monetization happen in India? might be very different from the way it's happened in the rest of the world. If you step back a little and say, how has monetization happened in the rest of the world? There have been three basic models of monetization outside this country. And if you're looking at the US and saying, we're probably going to follow them at some point in time, or the international market, there are three formats that we've seen internationally. One format has been advertising driven, which is probably one of the biggest in that space. The second model that we've seen has been subscription. A lot of print media took on subscription. Netflix is a subscription model. A lot of models are moving into subscription. The third is more a transactional pay-per-view one-off model, which is you pay for the content, you pay for the service, and you use it. That's the T-word transactional model in our business. So if you look at T-word, Apple has done a great job on it, being able to download a single piece of content, whether it is a movie, whether it's music, whatever it is. So my guess is in India, which one will happen, we're not very sure. And when we're talking of monetization and ideas on monetization and what will happen on the monetization side, I think in India, maybe from what I saw in the Ernst & Young report, a lot of it over the next couple of years is still going to be advertising driven, and therefore creativity on that side will get tested, because the advertisers are going to be probably the most difficult people to maybe satisfy and say, this is the content being made for your brand and therefore you need to sell to them. The second and the third are more consumer driven, and if you can make something which is creative for the consumer and talk to your consumer, you have a chance of monetizing your content. But will every content go one way or the other? One doesn't know. And will it be very advertising driven? I'm not very sure how much of advertising will it be. Will it move very quickly to subscription? We are seeing a fairly decent move to subscription all of a sudden. And it could be because of demonetization, because all of a sudden in 2 months we've learned how to use digital ways of payment, which we would have probably taken 2 years to do. So the economy, all of a sudden everybody knows how to pay online. After 8th November, I think we've all become experts and we all have our digital wallets and we all have our little ways of paying, and maybe UPI and Bheem and everything is going to happen. So maybe there is a movement which will happen towards subscription and transactional content acquisition or consumer consumption. But that's a piece that we have to see how it will work out.
Sure. I mean, there are also initially trust. You want
Yeah.
to take this? Yeah.
I mean, there are 3-4 companies in West that they have learned and they're smart enough to really provide a platform for helping the creators, or making a platform by which creators can monetize their creativity. And that inspirational issue is really bothering me from Western side to see what will happen in India, because I see the collectivity from the creativity point of view. If you really see any field, you say a plant, tulsi pauda, or you say rice, basmati rice, everything was available free. Same way in the content industry, I see huge talent, but they are not getting inspiration or sustainability because they are not getting paid. Hardly if you really see the data, you will find there is a huge gap. So I think my view is the technology will enable it, probably, the way Western people are thinking. The only difference is that some of the Western mind, they are very smart in creating money. They are very dollar-driven society. In India, we are more of a ijjat-driven society. We need our fame. We don't need money first. The parent will see my son is doing so much, but he would not be bothered if he is not earned so much. But imagine the actors. Will Amitabh Bachchan Saab will act on films until he's paid, or he would have continued for so long without receiving payments? So the inspirational issue is the monetization. You need to monetize them, and my view is that India will find solution. The only thing is that mindset.
Sure. Nishish, I mean, we started the discussion with one industry that's pretty much being wiped out, which is newspapering. The other one, and we're going to end with cinema, which is another one of those rare mediums where people actually took their money out of their wallet, went to a theater to watch the film. They didn't pay for television, it's subsidized by the advertiser, didn't pay for newspapers against subsidized by the advertiser. Now with digital content coming in and that too being free, at least in the US, you're seeing a huge decline in footfall in cinemas. Even here, I mean, of course, a lot of it has to do with piracy, the fact that the movie just comes out and someone in a small town gets it on his mobile phone and watches that film. Do you think in the medium run, we're going to see a decline of cinema as a theatrical experience, or will it go the Hollywood way, where it's everything superhero and only franchises?
So my guess is the cinema business is going to get significant growth because of the digital space. So look at the business model of making movies today. The business model of movies was so dependent on theatrical till a couple of years back that it was, if the movie didn't do well on theater, it was very, very dependent on that one form of monetization. All of a sudden, you've got a huge piece which is music, which is very digital, and you've got digital monetization or digital syndication, or the digital platforms which have now come in, which are able to add value to the movies. So my guess is you will see far more movies coming in because the movies business model and monetization has improved significantly. You will also find consumers wanting to go, the life of the movie might become shorter, but you will get more variety in the theater. So my guess is because of that, a lot of people will go back to the theaters.
Okay, I mean, I'm very happy about that guess, and I hope it turns out exactly the same way. I'm going to open the questions to the audience. We can take a few, right? Krishna?